welcome to West Virginia Author. I'm your host, Gordon Simmons, and as our guest today, we have a first-time novelist, the author of a new thriller with a very fascinating historical background behind it or premise to it. And our author, Dr. Roberto Kuzminski, is known to some people in the community, I guess, in one capacity, and now here you are as an author of books for West Virginia. So, welcome to our show, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
As I say, you're a physician, you've been a teacher, now you are an author of what has to be one of the great page-turning books I've read lately. In fact, it's hard to put down once you start it, and that's quite an accomplishment. What made you decide to write this story and become an author?
Well, obviously, this is a role quite different to the one that I'm used to play, and sometimes when you fall into a role that is different from the one that you have chosen or you have fallen into, you're driven into that situation by circumstances, not necessarily by plans. But I went through a fairly difficult period during my a few years back, and I had always been interested in writing, and I was always interested in writing adventures because since I was a young boy, I used to have my nose buried in an adventure book of some kind or another. So when this unexpected and not necessarily totally pleasant opportunity came up, I thought I could dedicate the time to write a novel, and that's basically what I did. And it was a very interesting process, a very long journey, and the results were a little bit unexpected, because I think that when you start writing, you're not necessarily thinking that it will eventually see the day of light as a published piece. So this is a very nice experience altogether.
Well, I'm a big fan of thrillers and mystery, and this is a good example of that. And in fact, it has a nice little twist to it that I didn't anticipate at the end there. But you say you grew up reading adventure stories, and that sort of captures the imagination. There is, I think, in this book, the suggestion of what might be a good movie, a cinematic quality to it.
I hear that frequently.
Well,
yes.
and apropos that, your publisher, quite wisely, put together a film trailer,
Right.
To sort of publicize it and hook readers with it. And
That's right.
We were fortunate. I think we have that we can watch that here.
Okay, great.
During and after World War II, President Perón, sympathetic to fascist Germany, allowed thousands of fleeing Nazis to enter Argentina, paying their way with gold stolen from victims of war in exchange for passports. German U-boats were sighted off South Atlantic coastal towns, and later, priceless art masterpieces appeared in Buenos Aires auction houses. In 1960, in the dense subtropical jungles of Misiones, Argentina, a bunker has been built in which mysterious boxes have been stored. Decades later, Dr. Gerson Asher, ex-Navy SEAL and prominent New York surgeon, receives a call from Argentina. Max, his grandfather, his voice filled with panic, announces he will be flying into New York to meet Gerson. Next morning, Gerson's life is turned upside down when he witnesses his grandfather's murder as he exits the airport. He has left cryptic clues that will plunge Gerson and Nicole, a beautiful geneticist, into a deadly chase. A harrowing journey that will take them from the broad avenues of New York to the back alleys of Buenos Aires. Will they be able to solve the puzzle while they try their best to avoid the counsel of the wicked.
The nice thing about that trailer is it gives a really good sense of the book. Certainly the thriller, suspense, adventure aspect of the book, but also at the very beginning the historical background. There is a very real historical premise that you use as the context for this story.
Right, exactly.
And I don't know if a lot of people are fully aware of that history.
Well, the historical background is regarding all the art looting and many of the problems of significant, massive theft that went on in Europe has been written about a lot. So there's a lot of factual information. Perhaps what is not quite that clearly known or written about is how that went on in some other countries, such as Argentina, which was supposedly neutral, like some other neutral countries, which in fact they were not. So you have places like Spain or Portugal or Turkey or Switzerland that were called neutral, which in fact they were not. And the same thing happened with Argentina. In the case of Argentina, of course, there is a certain collective idea as to how the government in those days, which was Perón and the very well-known Evita, functioned. So there's a little bit of glamour associated with the Perón simply because of Evita.
But the facts don't really support the glamour, do they?
The facts do not support the glamour, and it is particularly interesting because I grew up in Argentina, as you perhaps knew, and I was a young kid, and I remember even seeing Perón talking in the balcony of the so-called Casa Rosada, which is a pink house, or the equivalent analogous as a White House, when he was about to be deposed by the military. That happened in 1955. But basically, what happened is that Perón, and of course all the cadre of people that surrounded him, were extremely sympathetic to the German cause.